now the official partner series to the BSB. This is Cool Fab Racing.
Hello and welcome to Wales. This is round 7 of the 2017 Cool Fab Racing British Minibikes Championship, and we have live radio coverage all weekend long for you here on Facebook, on YouTube as well, and on Motorsport Radio and on the Cool Fab Racing website, all over the place basically, and right here at the track on the PA system. Big hello to everybody who's listening, who's not here at Wales as well. You can get in touch with us all weekend long. Let us know who you're supporting. It's at M Sport Radio on Twitter. It's at Cool Fab Racing on Twitter. So many places you can get in touch with us. Incidentally, if you are here at the track, have done pretty well for yourself in some of the races, you can actually come up to the commentary box and tell us about it. Get yourself an interview live on radio. And we are situated upstairs in the cafe area, up the stairs. And it'd be fantastic to hear from you. And a big hello to everyone who is tuned in live online on the Cool Fab Racing Facebook page as well. We'll be monitoring everybody's comments, so if you have any supportive things to say for riders, then do get in touch with us. It'll be fantastic to let us know that you are tuned in. Our commentator for this weekend is Alex Raby, who will be commentating us through all the action. We're currently in the midst of the final few qualifying sessions. Having had a red flag earlier in the day, which put the schedule behind somewhat, but out on track at the moment is the second session in the Senior Mini Motos category. And following this, it will be the Junior LC40 bikes out on track for their second qualifying session. And before the first race of the afternoon, it's the Pit Bike 140 and Moto Team category. So then, to talk us through what's happening in the final 4 minutes or so for this session, here is our commentator for this weekend, Alex Raby. Hello, Alex.
On to the Senior Mini Motos for the second qualifying session. Well, for those of you who've just joined us on Facebook, we're deep into the qualifying programme now. The final 3 before we get underway with race action for the first time here at round number 7 of the 2017 Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bike Championship. Format of the day, well, we've seen practice sessions from 9 o'clock to around about 10:30, at which point we started to time things in terms of qualifying, and 2 qualifying sessions will determine grid positions for this afternoon's races. Now, I say both sessions because it's the 2 qualifying sessions combined, the fastest lap from the 2 qualifying sessions, that determines the grid positions. For the vast majority of riders, they've improved in the second session, finding the right setup for a circuit that's alien to the vast majority of these riders, certainly before this weekend. And it's in the second qualifying session that they've really found their feet. So we've seen a lot of improvements in Q2 versus Q1. Do always emphasise how important the qualifying sessions are, because they determine your grid position not only for the first race that takes place here this afternoon, but the remaining 2 races of the weekend, both of which are scheduled for tomorrow after a brief warm-up session, which doesn't count for anything other than getting the riders back up to temperature and ready for their 2 remaining races. So it's the Senior Mini Motos that are out on track at the moment for their second qualifying session, as I said. Fastest time earlier on in the first qualifying session was just 56.6. Now they're running in the 54s. It's Will Howarth who looks set for pole position at the moment. He just comes around the final turn onto the home straight once again. 54.2 this time around for Will Howarth. But still 0.4 of a second clear of Brandon Payne, who at the moment sits in second place. 0.4 in arrears, as I said. Justin Bainbridge with a 54.9. as a best time, is the only other rider within a second of the current leader. And then there's a whole group of riders from 4th position down to 7th, all separated by less than half a second. Paul Nicholls at the moment in 4th, and Nick Bennett in 5th position, less than 1/10 of a second between them, and Ryan Grant as well, also in the 55.6s. So Paul Nicholls, Nick Bennett, Ryan Grant, just over 1/10 of a second between them. Justin Bainbridge, I think that was, with a bit of an incident at the end of his previous lap there, as he drops 40 seconds on that lap, but is still running. And another faller as well, we've dropped out on the circuit. But at the moment, the session is continuing. We're under yellow flags in what is the final sector of the lap, effectively. Will Howard still leading the way then, with a 54 flat being the time to beat. That was Josh Darter who'd come to grief in that final sequence of turns, but he too is now back up and running. At the moment, 9th in the timings for this second qualifying session in the senior mini-motos. Howarth then 0.4 of a second up on Brandon Payne. Justin Bainbridge half a second further in arrears. The top three still separated by less than a second as Will Howarth comes through to start another lap. It's going to be his last. The checkered flag will fall before he can do anything further. Less than 20 seconds remaining in this session. So as it stands, it'll be Will Howarth and Brandon Payne on the front row, Justin Bainbridge and Paul Nicholls on row 2, Nick Bennett and Ryan Grant on row 3. And Mark Payne in 7th position at the moment. Those 7 riders all separated by less than 2 seconds. The checkered flag falls and it's for Nick Bennett, unable to improve on his final lap there. See if any of the others can try and improve their starting position for the races themselves. Paul Nicholls still in 4th place, 1 minute 20 on that final lap, so clearly significantly easing up the pace, and he remains 4th. Will Howarth looks set for the pole position, unable to improve on his final lap of 54.1 compared to the 54 flat. That was the target time. Brandon Payne unable to beat it. 54.8 for him on his final lap of 54.4 was his previous best. That leaves him vulnerable to Justin Bainbridge. If Bainbridge could improve on that 54.9 lap in 3rd position, but I think that's just about it for this qualifying session with the senior mini-motos. So that'll leave us then with Will Howarth and Brandon Payne on the front row, Justin Bainbridge and Paul Nicholls on row 2, Nick Bennett and Ryan Grant on row 3, Mark Payne, Andy Whedon, Josh Darter and Ross Michael rounding out the top 10 in qualifying 2 with the senior mini-motos.
So we're getting ready for the Junior LC40 category out on track at the moment. And already reading lots of comments that are coming in on the Cool Fab Racing Facebook page, where we're already streaming live visual radio coverage of today's action, the final qualifying sessions before the races, and we will try our very best to get brand new BSB podium holder Brad Ray. He is here at the track and he is expected to be on a pit bike racing a bit later on today. So the man who put on such a magnificent show at Alton Park last weekend in the second race is here. How cool is that? Cool fab, you might even say. Yes, Jenny Darter is tuned in online right now, saying, come on, Josh Darter, number 26, in the senior mini motos. And Susan Jones also tuned in as well, saying, good luck, Callum Beach, we're all here supporting. With a thumbs up. Thanks a lot, Susan. And Roxanne Edmonds and Andrew Beagley also tuned in to our live stream, as is a whole load of other people as well. And don't forget to tell everybody that we are online. Live visual radio coverage. Streaming right now on Facebook. As Evan Belford sets the pace time, 54.864 out in front at the moment. It's immediately bettered by Casey O'Gorman, 54.0. As there's yellow flags down in the final sector for one rider who is up and going again. 5 minutes left to go in this session. And here is our commentator, Alex Raby.
Continued coverage of the second batch of qualifying sessions then, and it's the junior LC40s out on track. Casey O'Gorman was the pace setter in qualifying 1. He's doing the same in Q2, 7/10 of a second faster than he went this morning. 54.7 the time to beat earlier on today. And just as I say that, a new time to beat now from Evan Belford, 53.8. So 0.2 of a second faster than Casey O'Gorman. Evan Belford finished a full second back from Casey O'Gorman in Q1, but set the early pace in Q2. Casey O'Gorman has blasted that time away now. 53.4 puts him back at the top of the timesheets, ahead of Evan Belford second. Ross Maguire and Ollie Walker provisionally on the second row of the grid, but the Q1 times can basically now be ignored, because looking at the riders who are out there now, all the way down to 10th position, have all improved on all but the top 3 times from Q1. So quite a dramatic improvement from these riders from Q1 to Q2, and we can focus on the Q2 times as being the indicators as to grid positions for the 3 races themselves. Last couple of riders joining a little bit late to the group, but still just under half of this session remaining. Time to get in 3 or so laps before the checkered flag falls. As Taylor Lawrence just crosses the line there with a vast improvement on lap time, 55.5, up now to 6th position. Casey O'Gorman has also continued to improve as this session goes on. 3rd completed lap, 53.2, a new fastest of the session, new fastest of the day in the junior LC40s. O'Gorman then with a 0.2 of a second advantage over Ross Maguire. Evan Belford also within touching distance, as the cows in the field in the background are having a field day about something. For those of you listening in at home, that was the strangest sight you will see. There's something very exciting that must have happened in cow world. I'm going to take a brief Attenborough moment to observe behaviour, but they all went running across the field. Yeah, I know. They've got very excited about the karting going on track and trying to the kart track, I should say, and are trying to emulate them by darting around. But they all came storming from one side of the field to the other. Anyway, far more interesting, of course, is what's going on track, where Evan Belford has set a new fastest lap of this session. Cool FAB-Racing and even the local wildlife is trying to copy. Evan Belford with that 53.1 then. Casey O'Gorman with a 53.2. Ross Maguire with a 53.2. Incredible pace being set by the top 3, with less than a second now separating them. Evan Belford unable to match his previous best on that lap of 53.3. Josh Bannister just improving on his previous best with a 56.3, and Ollie Walker doing likewise a 54.3. There's a bit of a gap to bridge between 3rd and 4th positions at the moment. Ross Maguire in 3rd will be on the 2nd row of the grid as things stand with a 53.2, and then Ollie Walker with a 54.3 as Ross Maguire comes over the line now. These riders tit for tat, one responding to the other. Ross Maguire with a 52.7. Evan Belford and Casey O'Gorman has now been dropped onto the 2nd row of the grid provisionally. Still time to make up for that. Just over a minute remaining in this session. Waiting to see whether O'Gorman will improve on this lap. At the moment, he won't be starting from the front row of the grid, and it must be said that would be a surprise. As I said, though, still a minute remaining, and O'Gorman is one of the masters of improvements on the final dying seconds. Not able to improve on that lap, though. It's a 53.9 from Casey O'Gorman, so over half a second short of his personal best in this session. Ross Maguire, Evan Belford and Casey O'Gorman, the three riders in contention so far in terms of the pole position, but it's a 0.4 of a second gap between Ross Maguire and Evan Belford in the dying seconds of qualifying 2 with the junior LC40 category. Maguire, Belford, O'Gorman, and then that separate group further back, Garness, Walker and Stuart Campbell, all setting personal bests on their previous lap around. Less than 30 seconds remaining, so it won't be long before we start to say that some of these riders are entering their final lap. Cameron Sewell just crossing the line there, a pair of riders nose to tail. Sewell sits in 10th position at the moment. Taylor Lawrence making further improvements, moves above Bailey Stuart Campbell, who's dropped a couple of places despite having set a personal best on his previous lap. The checkered flag about to fall. Evan Belford with a slower lap last time around. Waiting to see where this checkered flag will fall. It's fallen on the system. The 8 minutes are up. And it's going to be 2 riders coming out of the final turn together. Bailey Stuart Campbell taking that checkered flag. So the rest of the group will be making their way through to complete their session as well. Ryan Hitchcock with a 54.6 on his final lap round, enough for 8th position at the moment. Riders trying to set their final laps in the closing moments of this session. There goes O'Gorman, does exactly what I said. The latest of late moves up the standings into top spot. So he sat off the front row provisionally, coming into the final lap in the last 10 seconds of that session. He comes flying round the final turn to set a time less than 1/10 of a second faster than Ross Maguire and takes provisional pole. O'Gorman and Maguire on the front row then. Evan Belford and Johnny Garness on row 2. Taylor Lawrence and Ollie Walker will comprise row 3, ahead of Bailey Stuart Campbell, Ryan Hitchcock, Mason Foster and Cameron Sewell, who round out the top 10.
Thank you very much, Alex Raby, and yes, well done once again to Casey O'Gorman, getting a what looks like a pole position for his races later, which begin later today. We are still running a bit behind according to the schedule if you're here at the track. And a big hello to everybody who's not here at the track as well, including our international audience, because we do have an international audience here at Cool Fab Racing. Robert Canton tuned in from South Florida as well, already wondering and asking about how to get involved and asking questions about what type of bikes they are, all sorts that we have here, Robert. Everything from mini F1 sidecars as well. You might want to incidentally check out the Cool Fab Racing YouTube channel, which has many millions of views already, getting lots of worldwide interests from all types of people. If you are interested in perhaps being a rider here at the Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bikes Championship, the partner series to the BSB, then you can get involved and check out the website coolfabracing.com, and it is a fantastic weekend to be had, and it is, if you want to just come as a spectator to any of the rounds, maybe to our last round at Cumbria in Rowra, which has now been changed from what was going to be a fantastic end at Donington to the championship. It's going to be just as good a finish to what has been just a brilliant season all year. It's at Rowra and we're going back to Cumbria. Fantastic news as well to match a fantastic championship that we've had all year. And I'm hearing as well, I don't know if this has been confirmed, but I'm hearing words of a hog roast that might be available at the last round. Not confirmed. Let's hope it will happen. Don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who's going to be doing that. I don't know if Roger's going to be serving it up, but that's what we hear. Fantastic final round in about a month's time in prospect, round 8. But here at round 7 in Wales, on track at the moment, you may be able to hear, I'm sure you can, the Pit Bike 140 and Moto Team second qualifying session. The very distinctive roar, thunder of these bikes as they get called in this second qualifying session by Alex Raby.
I thought you were going to say the thunder and roar of Alex Raby. Then I was all comfortable in my seat, building up to that kind of introduction. Out on the track then, as Lester so eloquently put, for the last of these qualifying sessions in qualifying block 2, Pit Bike 140s and Moto Team category. It's the split grid class, so we've got 2 classes out on the circuit at the same time. Very often one of these, Will Howarth, has been able to mix it with the rest. Largely it's Pit Bike 140 riders who tend to occupy the top positions, but Will Howarth has been able to keep pace with them, the leader in the Moto Team category in 2017. Well, it's Brad Ray who is leading the way at the moment in this second qualifying session. May prove academic if he makes the decision to start from the back row of the grid, which has been a custom in previous rounds. Ray set 5 laps in qualifying 1 and finished in 9th position, but comfortably fastest so far in this much quicker second qualifying session. As I said previously, conditions have changed quite dramatically. There's blue behind those grey clouds now. If you look in the right direction, which is a small patch, it's about 10 centimetres ahead of us of blue sky. There is still a vast amount of grey cloud overhead, but certainly is clearing up compared to what we saw earlier on today. Temperatures increasing as well. Times dropping quite dramatically from qualifying 1 to qualifying 2. Brad Ray it is then, with the fastest time so far, 51.4. As I said, qualifying 1 timings effectively academic, because all of these riders have improved on the qualifying 1 times already, and it'll be down to this one session to determine grid positions for the 3 races this weekend. Brad Ray, Will Howarth, Jamie King, Darren Anderson, Ben Pascoe, Ian Jackson, Sam Clowes, Keith Bolton, John Buckle and Elliot Lodge round out the top 10 as things stand. Brad Ray and Will Howarth still the top 2. Ray coming over the line with a 50.944, so again improving. Will Howarth with a 52.7, almost 2 seconds in arrears. Ray and Howarth then are the top 2 and the top performers in their respective classes. Brad Ray leading us. Jamie King second, 2.5 seconds in arrears of Brad Ray. Darren Anderson second at the moment in the Moto Team class. He's 4th overall. Of course, as I said previously, we've got a scratch classification. We've got 2 classes mixed in there as well. So those are the respective categories to be keeping an eye out for. And as I also mentioned previously, the vast majority of the front runners in this category are the Pit Bike 140 runners. So we've got 7 runners here in the Pit Bike 140s inside the top 10, as Will Howarth leads the Moto Team runners, 3 of the Moto Team runners in the top 10. Ian Jackson making an improvement in his time there, a 54.1, moves up to 4th in scratch, which is for 2nd in the Pit Bike, for 3rd rather in the Pit Bike 140 category. These grid positions, they'll all be mixed in with one another on the starting grid for the races themselves. So still gaining an advantage, even if it's over someone in the other category, could give you a buffer over the rest of the runners in your own class. Brad Ray's advantage out in front has been cut to a fraction over a second now, ahead of Will Howarth, who's gradually improved as this session has gone on. Ray doing likewise, skirting the outer limits of the circuit as he fires up to the far end of the circuit now on a 50.7 on that previous lap. 1.3 seconds clear of Will Howarth. Darren Anderson coming through for an improved lap last time around, so the riders' pace really picking up as this session goes on. Darren Anderson moving up a couple of places to P3, so 2nd in the Moto Team category. 3rd in the Moto Team category further down the order incidentally is Fraser Kinnaird. one of the championship contenders, ahead of Keith Bolton on the track, 4th in the Moto Team class. So we've got 4 of the Moto Team runners now in the top 10 of the standings. Rest of the pack filtering through. We've got less than 2 minutes now remaining in this session. No change in terms of the front runners. Will Howarth coming through to complete another lap there. Watching out to see whether Brad Ray can make any further progress in the remainder of this session. 50.7 at the moment, his fastest lap. And that's the time to beat, but no one looks like getting near it. It's a 52.2 for Will Howarth on that previous lap, a 52 flat for him. Jamie King, Darren Anderson and Ian Jackson all improving on their personal bests on that previous lap round. They're 3rd, 4th and 5th respectively. Anderson 2nd in the Moto Team class. There's been plenty of change as this session has gone on. Now just 1 minute remaining. Last opportunities for riders to make improvements on their times. Will Howarth is making his way through the final sequence of turns. Around Paddock Bend and up the start-finish straight. Can't improve, it's a 53.3 on that lap. Jamie King, Darren Anderson and Ian Jackson, closest contenders as I previously said. Although Anderson can't improve on that lap, he remains in 4th and neither can Jackson. So one wonders whether in the closing seconds of this session they'll be able to improve their ranking. Sam Clowes has just moved up onto the 3rd row of the grid in 6th position now. Watching as Fraser Kinnaird comes out of the final turn to enter what looks likely now to be the final lap for him, with the checkered flag being readied at the side of the circuit and the seconds ticking away. Brad Ray should get an extra lap in, just flashes across the line before the checkered flag falls with a 50.8. He doesn't really need to improve his time, quite honestly. He's over a second clear. Will Howarth takes the checkered flag. Going to have to hope that none of the other runners directly behind him can make an improvement and oust him from that P2. Darren Anderson now over the line, can't improve on Will Howarth, so he's still 2nd in the Moto Team class, lining up 4th on the grid unless things change. Ian Jackson 5th, Sam Clowes 6th, waiting for Brad Ray and Jamie King to come around to see if there's going to be any further change within those top 10 positions. Keith Bolton has jumped up onto the 5th row of the grid now with a late bid. Fraser Kinnaird next over the line, displaces him and moves up into 10th himself, so quite a lot of change in the lower order of the top 10 in the latter stages. Brad Ray now crosses the line with a 51.7, still faster than anyone else has been in this session, but a second slower than his personal best. It'll be Brad Ray on pole then, unless he elects to start from the back to give himself some fun and games as he has done previously in 2017. Will Howarth top in the Moto Team category, and Jamie King will line up on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Darren Anderson, Ian Jackson and Sam Clowes row 3. As I said previously, the vast majority of those top 10 in the Pit Bike 140 category. The 3rd of the Moto Team runners, Fraser Kinnaird, just snatching 10th on the grid on that final turn.
Thank you very much, Alex Raby. And yes, the first race of the weekend is up next, and that is the Mini GP70 category. Mini GP70s are out on track next for our first race of the weekend, followed by the Pit Bike Open category, then the AC40 Pros, AC40 Rookies after them. Then it's the Mini F1 Sidecars, followed by the Mini GP50s, the Senior Mini Motos, Junior LC40 categories, and ending the day during the Ladies Wine afternoon as well. So don't forget, the Ladies Wine afternoon will be over by the FS3 Clubhouse or hospitality area, and that happens at 4 p.m. Head over there, ladies, if you fancy a drink of wine or whichever is your favourite tipple. And that's one of the great things about being in attendance here at the 2017 FAB-Racing British Mini Bikes Championship. There's literally something for everybody here as well. Thank you and hello to everybody who's tuned in live online to our various Facebook streams, to people tuned in live and listening to us on Twitter as well, and on YouTube, because we are streaming in multiple places. We're also here at the track on the PA system, and we're getting ready for our first races. Riders lining up in the assembly area. Wonder what's going to happen for this Mini GP70 first race. Well, it should be very, very interesting, because the grid, according to my calculations, is that Casey O'Gorman is on pole position for this race, followed by Jay Abel. Incidentally, people watching online or listening online will be able to see the same timing screen that our commentator can see as well. And just a quick reminder, I'm sure I pass on a message from Roger at Race Control. Just a quick reminder about transponders. Everybody make sure that they have their transponders fitted, secure and on, and they are working. Any issues, go and see Roger in the Race Control building. That's the second porter cabin over by the assembly area. So not long to go now before we get our first race underway here at the 7th round of 2017 Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bikes Championship. My name is Lester. Thank you very much for tuning in. We are live on Motorsport Radio on the Cool Fab Racing website, which is coolfabracing.com. And we're monitoring all the fantastic comments from parents and family and friends tuned in online right now. Let us know who you are supporting this weekend. If you have a favourite rider here, if you are not able to get to Wales and you're tuned in at home, let us know, tell us, and give the riders and the teams your thoughts. It'd be fantastic to hear from you. Incidentally as well, you can also listen back to this coverage and download it as a podcast. All our broadcasts are downloadable as a podcast from your favourite podcast place, wherever that may be, as the kids say. I'm not a big podcaster. You'd think I would be, but I'm probably too busy making the podcasts. So Alex Raby is here with us, our commentator for this weekend. Alex, great to have you back. And is this your first trip here at Glenagors?
It is. In fact, it's my first trip to North Wales as a whole.
Wow. Okay,
my fourth trip to Wales this season for commentary. But as I said, yeah, my first trip to North Wales, Cardiff, Newport, and so on and so forth. More commonly, but not so much into the northwest. So, looking forward to the race action. We've seen plenty in qualifying of pace, of swapping and changing in times, and so on and so forth. But now we'll find out what the leaders are all about when they go toe to toe on the circuit. Looking forward to race one in the Mini GP70s, which is the first category out on track. Just making the final preparations for race action, and then we'll be getting underway.
Yeah, a couple of minutes to go. We are incidentally already behind a few minutes according to the schedule. If you have if you've been paying attention to the schedule that was published earlier in the week on the Cool Fab Racing Facebook page, we are behind not by that much, to be honest. We did have a red flag earlier in the day during qualifying, and by my calculations we're approximately 30 minutes behind the actual schedule, and hopefully we can catch up as the riders for the first race for the Mini GP70s, as you can hear, head out onto track at the moment, making their way round to the grid. The procedure here, as in every round at Cool Fab Racing, is that they'll leave the pits, head out onto the grid, and then they will do a green flag lap, and then we begin our first race. So this is it, Alex. This is the big first race, and it's a slight change to the usual schedule that we've got used to for most of the season, because we begin with the Mini GP70s.
Race one in the Mini GP70s category in the 2017 Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bike Championship, one of the longest circuits we've seen in 2017 here in North Wales. And the riders just filtering around and on towards the grid. As we said, as was explained previously, It'll be one lap, Saito lap before we get underway with the racing itself. 11 riders lining up in this race 1 of the Mini GP 70. The top 6 still in contention for the championship as things stand. No one's really been consistent enough in the Mini GP 70s to kind of build a gap at the top of the standing. It's Harvey Claridge who leads the way on 285 points. The gap is 32 points to second position and Brodie Crockford. Then 5 riders separated by 28 points from second all the way down to 6th. So as you can tell, there'll be plenty of position changes between now and the end of the season in terms of the championship and the fight for the championship podium itself. Casey O'Gorman making his second appearance of the season, having top scored at round number 6 in his first appearance of the campaign. And now we get going with race number 1 in the Mini GP 70s. Heading back around then towards us once again in our turn 1 commentary position around Paddock Bend and on towards the start-finish straight to complete lap number 1. We'll be able to see who's filtered around in the lead. It's Casey O'Gorman who is out in front, Jay Abel in second position, Brodie Crockford in third, coming through to get the better of Harvey Claridge. So the championship leader relegated down to 4th position. O'Gorman and Abel ahead of Crockford and Claridge. There's a bit of a gap already developing behind the top 4 and to the remainder of the pack. In fact, 5th and 6th are closely packed together, Callum Beech and Louis Rendell. It's Beech who's holding on at the moment. The top 2 breaking slightly clear of 3rd position, Brodie Crockford. Harvey Claridge slightly further in arrears, down in 4th, and Beech under some real pressure now from Louis Rendell over that 5th position as they snake their way back towards the completion of lap number 2. So it's Casey O'Gorman who completes lap number 2 with another improved lap time, just looking over his shoulder as he makes his way up the Dragon straight to the far end of the circuit now. The current race leader, half a second clear of Jay Abel in second position. 3rd place is with Brodie Crockford, 0.2 of a second up on Harvey Claridge. As I said, a big gap then behind 4th position to the rest of the group. 4 seconds behind is Callum Beech in P5, and under all sorts of pressure now from Louis Rendell as they make their way through the infield section, the carousel here for round number 7. Still the fight at the moment over 5th position and pretty close as well for P3, but it's Casey O'Gorman, the pole sitter, who's managed to take control of this race, flying down to the first turn and blasting away from Jay Abel, who still sits in P2. Brodie Crockford in 3rd place with just over 1/10 of a second now to Harvey Claridge, who's gained on that previous lap and continues to gain up towards the far end of the circuit. The race really on now for 3rd position, but it's Crockford who holds station at the moment, continuing to drop back from the top 2, but unable to make any further progress from there. Harvey Claridge then with an opportunity to try and gain some ground here, having lost a position in the early part of the race. Made his way up to 3rd actually on the opening lap, but ended up dropping it back down to P4. So the top 4 are in their qualifying finishing positions. Callum Beech and Louis Rendell likewise in 5th and 6th. So far we haven't seen any change in terms of the pace from qualifying to the race. And it's Casey O'Gorman who leads us ahead of Jay Abel, half a second between them. Brodie Crockford 3rd. Likewise, a similar margin now over Harvey Claridge. Callum Beech just holding off Louis Rendell, who had a feint to the inside down the start-finish straight, and it's up to the far end of the circuit that you can gain the most, and it's Rendell who ducked out for a moment there to try and take 5th position, but Beech held on for P5. So real racing going on for 5th position. And it's up to Louis Rendell to try and find a way through. No one's been able to do it so far. Fight going on further down the order as well. Elliot Dufton's got the better of Jaden Toomer, so that's for 9th position. and there's a group of 3 riders all together on the circuit further down the order, just making their way through the infield section now. The leaders are back on the start-finish straight once again. It's O'Gorman, half a second up on Jay Abel, but a new fastest lap of the race from Abel, a 49.6, matching the pace of O'Gorman out in front. Can he now start to make back some of that half a second margin? Again, Rendell looking to the inside of Beach down into turn 1, but unable to do anything about it. There's a 1/10 of a second gap between the two of them as they reach up to the far end of the circuit. Again, Rendell's looking down the inside, down all of the straights, but he doesn't have the pace advantage in a straight line and is unable to do anything, therefore, in terms of overtaking opportunities. We've got overtaking opportunities further back down the order as well. I think that's a change of position for 8th place. We'll see when they come back towards us here in our turn 1 commentary position. No change up front, although visibly it looks as though Jay Abel has closed a little bit more now on Casey O'Gorman, and we could have a close finish to this one. O'Gorman leading the way, 0.3 of a second. I wasn't wrong. The gap has come down between the top 2. O'Gorman looking over his shoulder to Abel. 3rd place is with Brodie Crockford, only narrowly ahead of Harvey Claridge, and then that separate fight that I've been talking about as well for 5th position between Callum Beach and Louis Rendell. Rendell looking down to the inside, continuously coming down the straights, but no way through down at the inside. Oscar Pinson still an isolated P7 as Dufton comes over the line. I did say previously on that last lap up to the far end of the circuit, Elliot Dufton made the move down the inside of Luke Coggins. He's gapped him to 0.6 of a second already. 6 laps still remaining, half race distance completed. Jaden Toomer rounding out the top 10. Coming round to complete lap number 7 now. Casey O'Gorman out in front. A new fastest lap of the race of 49.4, but Abel is sticking with that pace. Crockford in 3rd position. Still 0.2 of a second clear of Harvey Claridge. They're matching one another's pace. Diving down the inside now from a distance back. Louis Rendell makes the pass, trying to come through for 5th position. I think he might have got it there. We'll wait and see whether that's a position change further back down the order. But one thing is for certain, Harvey Claridge has made the pass on Brodie Crockford. So through for 3rd position. The championship leader manages to overhaul his main rival in the series standings. There's still something to the tune of 30 points separating the two of them, and things are going once again in favour of Harvey Claridge. The championship leader makes it through into a top 3 space in the second half of this race number 1 in the Mini GP 70s. Crockford is trying to respond, but he's just caught lap traffic at just the wrong moment, and that's made a huge gap now between 3rd and 4th positions, and that may even be over a second. It's well over a second, in fact, almost 2 seconds now between Harvey Claridge and Brodie Crockford. So that may well have settled 3rd position. Crockford dropping back then. Beach and Rendell, no change there. I thought Rendell had got as close as you like on the previous lap to getting down the inside, but he didn't manage it. And again, Callum Beach holding on for 5th position. So it's Casey O'Gorman versus Jay Abel out in front. Half a second has been the gap for the majority of this race. Harvey Claridge versus Brodie Crockford. And that's where we've seen the main change in this race so far. Claridge coming through, getting the better of Crockford. Still further down the order, Callum Beach and Louis Rendell fighting for position. And it's up front that Jay Abel really has closed on lap number 9. 0.2 of a second now between them, and faster going up to the far end of the circuit as well. Could we see a change of positions for the lead? Not for the moment. Casey O'Gorman holding on with that 0.2 of a second advantage over Jay Abel in second. 49.5 last time around for Jay Abel, 49.8 for Casey O'Gorman. And the gap has been eaten up in very swift fashion between the top 2. Harvey Claridge with a new fastest lap of the race on that previous lap, a 49.3. He sits in 3rd position, having dispatched Brodie Crockford earlier on. Crockford with a new personal best. These positions have all settled down now, other than the race for the lead. And that's what we've got to focus on for the remaining 2 laps. The rest of the pack largely decided. Significant gaps between all of them, at least a second between all of the riders other than the top 2. Still Casey O'Gorman leading, still Jay Abel second. O'Gorman has responded on that lap with a 49.6. Jay Abel matching it. The gap is static, although it looks as though O'Gorman started to open out a little bit of a margin in the early part of this lap number 11. It's a 12-lap race, so there aren't a huge number of opportunities for Jay Abel to find a way through. He's had the pace advantage at times during this race, but he hasn't been able to convert it so far. O'Gorman riding a good defensive race. It hasn't been an all-out attack disappearing off into the distance, as we've seen at times this season from Casey O'Gorman. Jay Abel has kept him very honest indeed. Hasn't been able to find a way through, though. Opportunities narrowing as this race goes on. Up to the far end of the circuit is one of the best overtaking opportunities, but no way through down the inside there for Jay Abel, as Harvey Claridge continues to eat up the ground between himself and the top two, but he's going to come a little bit too late into that fight. Another new fastest lap of the race, half a second quicker this time than the top two, but he's still got 1.5 seconds to make up, and there's no way he's going to do that in time. So it's a two-way duel in the closing stages of race number 1 in the Mini GP 70s. Casey O'Gorman versus Jay Abel. The order is still the same as it was in qualifying between these two. Casey O'Gorman, and we've got a faller. It's Jay Abel who's gone down in the final sequence of turns. So from second position, Jay Abel remounts the machine swiftly. He's up in 4th position if he can get it back running again in time. Callum Beach is coming round and may take 4th position if Abel isn't swiftly onto the circuit. Abel does rejoin the track. Beach is coming towards him at full speed. Final turn. Can Callum Beach make it up into 4th position? Drag race down to the line. Abel just holds on for P4, and that's more good fortune for the championship leader Harvey Claridge after he'd managed to get the better of Brodie Crockford, and Crockford will in the end claim 3rd position. He held it for the first half of the race before he was overhauled by Claridge. The championship leader will further extend his leading margin in the series standings overall. Jay Abel relegated down to 4th position with a dramatic fall in the closing stages whilst chasing desperately after the race leader. Just gave it a little bit too much there coming out of Devil's Elbow, and now you know how it earned its name, because that really was devilish for Jay Abel, who ended up down in 4th position. Callum Beach in an isolated 5th position, but ends up coming quite close to taking a 4th place. If he'd been a little bit closer, he could have capitalised on that. Louis Rendell holding on for P6 in the end, unable to close on Beach and losing ground in the latter stages. Oscar Pinson, Elliot Dufton after a good pass earlier in the race for 8th position. Luke Coggins and Owen Miller rounding out your top 10.
Thank you very much to Alex Raby, and wow, what a fantastic race to start our weekend of racing here in Glenagors in Wales, and it really was pretty epic, that last couple of laps, and dramas and heartbreak for some riders and victories for others. Casey O'Gorman, for example. Mini GP 70 is back again tomorrow, and we are filming today's races these races will be the ones that will be recorded and edited, and you'll be able to see a copy of them on YouTube later in the week, expertly edited by Alan Tadei and TDI Media. So heading out onto track right now for their first racing of the day. It is the Pit Bike Open category, and a slight, ever so slight change to the format, because we are running slightly behind the build schedule here for the benefit of the people here at the track. We will be racing straight away, so no green flag lap. Effectively, this is the green flag lap that they're on right now. So they'll come out of the pits, join the grid, and then we go racing. Alright, so let's find out what is the grid order for this first pit bike race with Alex Raby.
Race 1 in the Pit Bike Open category then, and it's Max Cook who is the current championship leader, the pre-race favourite, and one of the 2 riders lining up on the front row of the grid. Cook is the only ever present in the top 5 in the championship standings, leads by 152 points ahead of this race. Charlie Nesbitt, though, has been unbeaten in the 3 races he's taken part in this 2017 campaign. 3 rounds, I should say, 9 races in total, having appeared at rounds 1, 4, and last time out unbeaten in 3 races at round number 6. So Charlie Nesbitt, the pole sitter, second in the championship. Unassailable lead by the looks of things for Max Cook, out in front in the series standings. A closer group further back in the top 10 though, from 4th to 10th. They're all separated by just 27 points, and since the rider in 3rd in the championship isn't here this weekend, things should close up further as we get underway with race 1 in the Pit Bike Open category. Charlie Nesbitt and Max Cook leading us away on the front row of the grid. In fact, the top 3 have broken clear very swiftly in this one. Will Howarth staying with the top two as he sits in third place, coming in our direction once again as they come through the infield section and then winding their way back to the outer loop of the circuit and towards our turn one commentary position. Well, we've got a change for second position. Will Howarth has come through there for P2. So Howarth up into second place. The top two have fragmented away. Then there's a bit of a gap to third and fourth positions, and a train of riders further down the order snaking their way through. It's Max Cook who leads then, ahead of Will Howarth, who, as I said, made up a position there. Andrew Giles in P3. Brandon Payne in fourth position, as Charlie Nesbitt had a mechanical problem over the far side of the circuit on towards Devil's Elbow. He's paddling his way back towards the paddock, and now doing a little bit of grass tracking as well, and that looks like it could be terminal for the pole sitters race. So curse of the commentator there, because I said he was unbeaten in the 9 races he's taken part in this season, and promptly the machine lets him down and it's game over in race number 1 of this pit bike open category. The race continuing, of course, under yellow flags in that penultimate marshal post, just for the recovering rider who now seems to be off to the side of the circuit. No change in terms of the top 2 positions, but we've been denied that fight between Charlie Nesbitt and Max Cook. It's Cook who leads the way, a new fastest lap of the race, as you'd expect on lap number 2 of 49.2, and something to the tune of 0.4 of a second faster than Will Howarth, who sits in second place. The closer fight now is over third position between Andrew Giles and Brandon Payne, and Payne is closing in as they come around the spoon and onto the infield section. Payne already looking for a way through. Giles has blocked that manoeuvre for now. Both of them running very similar lap times on lap number 2. Payne trying to find a way through. Giles has got the move covered for the moment as they work their way back onto the outer loop once again. No change out in front. Max Cook leading the way, 0.7 of a second up on Will Howarth in second position. A new fastest lap of the race once again from Max Cook of 48.9. Howarth still in second place, but now 2 seconds back. Andrew Giles, half a second clear of Brandon Payne. Fifth place with Josh Ingram. He's dropped away now from that lead quartet. I did say it was a quintet in the early stages. The top 5 really had a bit of a gap behind them, but obviously that got reduced down to 4 with the retirement of Charlie Nesbitt, and Will Howarth hasn't been able to provide the same opposition to Max Cook, who will further extend his championship leading margin here. All largely academic, with 75 points on offer in each of the 2 remaining rounds, of course, and that gap already at 152 points. So Max Cook will be the champion in the pit bike open category, but he's going to add another race win to an already successful season as he leads the way here. Other than the opening round of the season at Clandau, it's been at least 60 points scored in every round of the season. So a regular top 3 finisher, Max Cook, who leads the way here. 3 seconds up on Will Howarth in second. Still Andrew Giles in third. Brandon Payne setting a new personal best on that previous lap, but hasn't really been able to do much about finding a way past Andrew Giles, even if he has oscillated and tried to find a way through down the inside. Further back, it's spicing up for 6th position as well. Callum Wybrow ahead of Jack Qualters, and Craig Walker has joined in their battle as well. So a 3-way fight for P6 as they reach their way around the carousel. We've got an attempted position change. Jack Qualters thinking about a move, can't quite make it stick. So no change for that position for now. Making their way back round towards Paddock Bend once again, in the fight for 6th position that I've been talking about. Wybrow, Qualters and Walker, and it's Qualters who has made up a position. So Callum Wybrow has dropped to the back of that group. He's down to 8th position. Qualters and Walker both making their way through on that previous lap. Callum Wybrow still with them though. And now it seems to be between Jack Qualters and Craig Walker over 6th position. Rounding out the top 10, Jamie King and Ben Pascoe, each setting new personal best laps on that previous lap. Max Cook leads the way. Will Howarth coming over the line in 2nd position, 6 seconds separating them, 5 seconds behind them as well to Andrew Giles. New personal best there from Brandon Payne, but the gap is up to over a second now between third and fourth positions. No change in the fight for sixth and seventh. Still Jack Walters ahead of Craig Walker, and the pair of them have started to drop Callum Wybrow. Jamie King is closing on both of them. We'll see if Jamie King might be able to get in amongst the action here and try and make further positions. Up in ninth position at the moment, ahead of Ben Pascoe, who rounds out the top 10. We've lost a couple of the anticipated runners, of course. We were due to start with 13, and having lost Charlie Nesbitt in the early stages, gap now between the top two is 8 seconds. So we were anticipating a duel between Charlie Nesbitt and Max Cook, and that hasn't quite panned out. They were separated by half a second in qualifying. So we were in for a fairly close duel, but Nesbitt's retirement has seen to that. Max Cook well and truly dominant in race number one here. 5 laps still remaining. Howarth in second, Andrew Giles in third. That's the closest battle, I suppose. Third and fourth positions. Brandon Payne again eating ever so slightly into that gap, but less than a tenth of a second gained. He sits in P4. Josh Ingram in fifth place. Jack Walters, Craig Walker, Callum Wybrow and Jamie King all setting new personal best laps last time around, and I suspect it won't be too long before Jamie King finds a way to get the better of Callum Wybrow. That's the battle for 8th position. They're making their way through the carousel here. Jamie King closing quite significantly. Will already be looking for a way through. Gets good exit and into Devil's Elbow, trying to find a way through for 8th position here. Wybrow then ahead of King. Jack Walters in 6th position, dropping Craig Walker in 7th. 8th and 9th still closely packed together. Jamie King a little bit slower on that lap than he had been on the lap prior. Wonder whether he just got a little bit tucked up behind the other runner who had been running a second a lap slower than him. King still in 9th position then, ahead of Ben Pascoe in 10th. Max Cook with 3 laps remaining. Quite a disparity now between the leader and the riders at the back of the field, and in fact Max Cook probably will catch up and start to make it into the lapped runners effectively by the time he gets to them. Not too far away now from the tail end of this train, which is 10th position and Ben Pascoe. Jamie King, the challenge seems to have faltered against Callum Wybrow, who set a new personal best lap on lap number 8. He's now coming round to complete lap 9 and still ahead of Jamie King in 9th position. Now the gap is up to a second, so 8th and 9th seemingly settling down. Max Cook coming in with 2 laps remaining to complete his 10th lap up to the far end of the circuit to lap Ben Pascoe, who sits in 10th place on track. Max Cook, Will Howarth, 10 seconds between the top two. Andrew Giles, 5 seconds further back. Extinguished the early challenge of Brandon Payne, who's still in 4th, as Cook puts a lap on Ben Pascoe at the back of the field. Still less than a second between Callum Wybrow and Jamie King over 8th position. But King has been able to make no further inroads despite closing on to the tail of him at a second a lap. Once he got to him, he was unable to find a way through. New personal best from Josh Ingram and Jack Walters in 5th and 6th positions. Their pace gradually improving as the race goes on, but since Ingram got the better of Walters, there's been no real response there. And Walker, having got the better of Callum Wybrow, has dropped him as well. So the positions look largely settled now as they come into the closing stages in race 1 in the pit bike open category. Ben Pascoe, as I said, a lap down, so he won't do the full race distance of 12 laps. Max Cook certainly will. The race leader wending his way back around to the completion of this race with a gap of over 11 seconds. He's been a second a lap faster than Will Howarth. He's even been able to afford to back off the pace in the closing laps and won't make the effort to lap any more of the runners by the looks of it. In fact, if anything, he's dropped back slightly on that previous lap to allow the others to continue their respective battles. Max Cook then takes the checkered flag. The champion in the pit bike open category for 2017, race winner yet again. Will Howarth will be second over the line. Third then, a very impressive third place for Andrew Giles. Giles, having started all the way back down in 12th position, comes through to take a top 3 place after the retirement of Charlie Nesbitt. Brandon Payne challenged for that 3rd place on the opening few laps, but once he couldn't find a way through, Giles built up his pace and started to open a gap. Josh Ingram takes 5th position. It'll then be Jack Quarters and Craig Walker, as well as Callum Wybrow next over the line. Jamie King and Ben Pascoe, a lap down, have already rounded out the finishers.
Thank you very much, Alex Raby, and what a fantastic race that was. Well done to Max Cook. A gap of 11 seconds was his victory. Pretty incredible. So up next, out on track, it is the AC40 Pro, their first race of the weekend, and a quick reminder, if you needed it, for the people here at the track in Glenagors in Wales, that today's races are the ones that will be filmed and edited for YouTube later in the week. So just a you might want to keep that in mind if you intended on maybe using tomorrow as your giving it your all. I'm sure everybody will be riding nice and safely and sensibly and cleanly, but just a quick reminder, that's all I'm saying. Today's races will be the ones that we'll be watching later in the week, filmed and edited by Alan Tadiai's team of TDI Media. You're listening to live radio coverage of Round 7 of the 2017 Cool Fab Racing British Mini Bikes Championship.
This is Cool Fab Racing. Live coverage all season on the Cool Fab Racing Facebook page and on the website coolfabracing.com.
So riders, for the next race heading out on track, the AC40 Pro, and a big hello to all the people tuned in live online to our various Facebook streams, and I think we're streaming live on Periscope as well on Twitter, and loads of people tune in from all over the world. Can you believe? Gary Friend tuning in from Korea, he says. Imagine that. Gary Friend, welcome to our stream live here. All right then, so as we get ready for the next race, let's find out the grid with Alex Raby.
Race 1 in the AC40 Pro category, just 12 points separating the top 2 in the championship standings coming into this one, after particularly strong efforts in both rounds 5 and 6 for Johnny Garnes. He's the rider with the momentum, sitting in second in the championship standings. 12 points to make up. He could do so this weekend to enter the final round of the championship as the leader. He's certainly outscored the current championship leader Ross Maguire at each of the last 3 rounds. There's a separate fight in the championship standings between Eddie O'Shea and Ollie Walker. 14 points between them. 104 points behind them even. Lining up on the starting grid then with Ross Maguire on pole, the current championship leader. Alongside him, Eddie O'Shea sits in P2, third in the championship standings. Watch for Johnny Garnes directly behind Ross Maguire, the main 2 championship contenders. Now, as I said, they've got a fairly significant margin behind them to Eddie O'Shea, and that separate fight with Ollie Walker over third in the standings, and then a battle for 5th overall. Ryan Hitchcock leading that one. He starts all the way back in 10th position. Let's see if he can recover off the line here. Great start from Eddie O'Shea from P2. O'Shea picks up the race lead then. three abreast as they go up to the far end of the circuit. Ross Maguire looks to have lost out quite dramatically off the line. To me, it looks as though he's dropped down to P4 as they head towards the far end of the circuit. But there's no doubt about who the new race leader is. Eddie O'Shea has picked it up superbly and heading on towards the infield section. Has to move to defend. He is under some pressure out in front. But Eddie O'Shea, the rider who has the most ground to make up in this championship fight against Johnny Garnes, who sits on 301 points. Eddie O'Shea then with 36 points to make up on Garnes and 12 more than that to make up on Ross Maguire, is going about it the right way by leading the pair of them on the opening lap here at round number 7, race number 1 in the AC40 Pros. Top 4 then unchanged since heading down towards the far end of the circuit first time around. O'Shea though under some pressure. Garnes looking down to the inside into turn 1. Separate fight going on as Ross Maguire attempts to recover. It looks as though Garnes has got the move made, and he does get the better of Eddie O'Shea up towards the far end of the circuit. Mason Foster having a cheeky look down the inside of Ross Maguire while Maguire was going on the attack, trying to get the better of James Cook for third position. Maguire then is dropping back from the top 2 and his main 2 rivals in terms of the championship. This is great news for the series overall. For the neutral, Johnny Garnes and Eddie O'Shea, 2nd and 3rd in the series, gaining by the looks of it here on Ross Maguire, who it can only manage to hold on to 4th position at the moment, and under some pressure from that for that place as well from Mason Foster. The top 2 have started to break away. It's Eddie O'Shea versus Johnny Garnes, but it's Garnes who got the move made down the inside up to the far end of the circuit at the end of the Dragon Straight. Back through now for 3rd position. Ross Maguire captures that place. James Cook relegated down to 4th, thinks about going for a lunge back down the inside into turn 1, but he can't do it. Now we'll find out if Ross Maguire has got the speed to go off in pursuit of the 2 race leaders. Mason Foster has a huge amount of speed down that Dragon Straight up towards the far end of the circuit, but he can't convert it for the moment, and he's starting to come under some pressure now for P5 from Ollie Walker. Coming on towards the infield section once again. It looks as though we may have lost P2. Have we lost Johnny Garnes? Garnes at the far end of the circuit, completely the opposite direction from our turn 1 commentary position. There are dots on the horizon all the way over there. But it looks to me as though we've lost the race leader, or the rider who was the race leader anyway at the end of lap number 2, Johnny Garnes. It's Eddie O'Shea who's going to come back towards us as the new race leader. Ross Maguire, a little bit of good fortune for him when he was looking to lose points in terms of the championship on the evidence of what we'd seen early on in this race. 3rd position with James Cook. Mason Foster 4th, but still under pressure from Ollie Walker. As I said, Walker has progressively gained half a second a lap to close right in now on Mason Foster. Could be a potential position change for 4th there. Got a group of 3 riders together, 4th, 5th and 6th. Foster, Walker, Hitchcock all together. Foster doing wonders to hold off Ollie Walker at the moment, and Ryan Hitchcock taking advantage of those 2 holding one another up just to ease onto the tail of them. Isolated races being run at the moment for Jimmy Parker, Troy Jeffrey and Jack Kirsch, and Josh Bannister putting him under some pressure now on the fringes of the top 10. So out in front then it's Eddie O'Shea coming through to complete another lap ahead of, in 2nd position, Ross Maguire. James Cook dropping a little bit back on that previous lap in 3rd position. Now 0.8 of a second behind the top 2. Still the fight going on. 4th, 5th and 6th places. Foster, Walker